I love marketing and I love marketing psychology. And so much of what you're doing in Instagram is about psychology, whether or not you know it or you realize what's going on. And I really kind of started nerding out on it. But my visibility issues kind of stepped in and stopped me
Ah,
taking it further. And so I had this massive, massive block, which was even though I had people asking for help, my nervous system was not on board.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listener. If you've ever looked at Instagram and thought, nope, absolutely not, I cannot dance, point, lip sync, shout, brag, or churn out content like a machine, then this episode is going to feel like a warm blanket. Today, I'm talking with Ilona Glastonbury, an ex-Potter turned Instagram coach whose life and work took a huge turn when chronic illness disabled her and forced her to rethink what sustainability really meant. Out of that pivot came something beautiful: the Quiet Creatives Academy. Ilona helps quiet creatives, the thoughtful, sensitive, introverted artists, makers, and entrepreneurs who don't want to hustle or shout to be seen. She helps them create an Instagram presence that feels like them. Not loud, not fake, not soul sucking, just real. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to be a quiet creative in a very noisy online world, how Ilona has navigated her own fear of visibility, and how authenticity, not performance, is what actually creates connection and sales. Let's dive in. Ilona, welcome. It's really funny because I only met you last week, but I feel like I've known you for a very long time. I'm immediately very comfortable with you. Thank you so much for waking up at the freaking crack of dawn yet again to meet me, because we're on opposite sides of the world. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, Anna, I'm really looking forward to having our chat. I think, yeah, I'm excited. Like similarly, I feel like we've known each other for quite a while, even though it's been less than a week.
Yeah. I think this actually ties into what we're going to talk to, because we met each other on Instagram, and vibes attract vibes. And so this kind of thing can happen. Um, would you share with this audience who may not have met you yet and may not be familiar with what you do, what is it that you do now and who do you help?
Okay, so I help quiet creatives show up on Instagram in a way that feels in alignment, but is also very authentic to who they are, to their practices. Um, and in such a way, like my whole thing is that if you understand how Instagram works, then you can tailor your needs as a creative to the needs of the algorithm. And even though Instagram is a space where you will see loud people, entertainers, um, you know, quite often polarizing, high energy stuff going on. And when you see that, that's the stuff that you see is getting all the attention. I know from my personal experience as a ceramicist and potter that you can very much operate in a corner of Instagram which is quiet and gentle and meets your needs, both like on that kind of energetic level, but also the needs of your business. And I think that what I do is different to what lots of other kind of Instagram coaches and consultants do, in that they're all about, okay, you need to be doing all of these things. And I'm like, well, you could, but if you're not in alignment with doing all of those things, A, you're not going to be able to sustain it. B, you're going to hate it. And C, I know if you hate showing up on Instagram, you're not going to do it. So you're not going to get the results anyway. So I'm all
Yeah.
about like, let's find a way where your needs can meet the needs of the algorithm, and you can still tap in to the reach and the growth and the networking and all the great stuff that Instagram can bring to your business and to your life and to your practice, your creative practice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad to be having this conversation with you. And I'm so eager to learn from you. And I know that you are speaking the language not only of me, but also of this audience when you're talking about um, attuning to your own body's needs, your own nervous system's needs. And I think there's this conception out there among some of us anyway, that if we do that, well, that's all great and it's going to support our well-being. But is that actually going to then support a business or, work with, is Instagram going to work for me if I do that? So I'm eager to learn more during this conversation. But before that, I'd love to have you share a bit about how you got here because this, you know, this is not what you've always been doing, and it's something that you've arrived at through a whole wide variety of your own personal experiences that have impacted you. So what is the path that brought you to this work?
Um, So it's a weaving, winding one. So I suppose the first thing, if it's not evident, is that I do firmly identify as a quiet creative, and as someone who like I sometimes think to myself, what would I do if I didn't ever have to make money again? If if I could just spend my days, how would I do it? And I tell you, I would not be online.
Yeah.
I would be very much invisible. I would happily be invisible. So I do come from that place, um, and um, and I yeah, I almost died 4 times before the age of 5,
I
and
remember
I
you telling me
think
that.
And I think that that's kind of one of like the initial the formative events that have happened in my life that has led my nervous system to not be super cool about being visible, because possibly if I do, because I have to say that every one of those situations was, you could link back to me being adventurous and putting myself out there. So,
Yes.
like I almost drowned twice. And I split my head open on a
Mm.
fireplace and like have this big scar on my hairline. And I also electrocuted myself
Oh my goodness.
when I was about 3 because I was playing with the stereo and hooked myself up to mains power.
Wow.
So, all of them were being young and being adventurous, and yeah, I think I probably gave my mum PTSD as well as myself.
Yeah.
And they do say that when traumatic things happen to you prior to prior to the age of 5, you don't have the capacity to talk them through. You don't have the
Right.
language skills to deal with, and so they kind of, become embedded in your nervous system. So,
Yeah.
yes. So with that being said, I very much do identify with this concept of not really wanting to be seen on a nervous system level.
Yeah.
But I am adventurous and I am ambitious and I am creative. And I came to Instagram through pottery. And basically I worked out in the early days of Instagram, I worked out that quite likely Instagram was going to be an incredible way to to reach people and to grow my practice and to sell my art and my pottery
You had a
and
vibrant pottery practice and business, right? I mean, I've seen your beautiful work.
very much so. And without Instagram, I don't believe I would have. It was
Mm.
the number one driver of, I had a mailing list. Instagram drove my mailing list signups.
Yeah.
Um, and and it was and I would do a shop update and sell out and everything. I had people, um, not to blow my trumpet, but like everything was working on like that business level. I had all these people
Yeah.
asking me for pots, and I was very targeted about who I sold through, and it was everything was coming away. But I will say that, and Instagram was working for me, and Instagram was working for me in a way where I felt very, very comfortable showing up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, I never showed my face. I I did talk in my captions, so I was like there was storytelling going on in my captions.
Yeah.
Um, but it was never like, "Look at me," it was all about the work, and the closest you kind of really saw was my hands. So I didn't feel like I was putting myself out there for judgment on Instagram, and it all worked very, very well for me. But I categorically was still having that fear of being seen because
Yeah.
when I did shop updates, and this is something I don't think I've ever told anyone before.
Huh.
So I would do like, quarterly shop updates or whatever it was. And when I did, um, every single time I would be absolutely terrified,
Yeah.
even though almost without fail, I would sell out a shop update within 24 hours.
Hmm.
Even though I would have people DMing me before the shop update going, "When's the shop update happening? I'm, waiting." Even
Yeah.
though most of the shop update would, like, 75 to 80% would always sell out to mailing lists. Before I let anyone on Instagram even know, it was, you know so I it always went very well, but I used to say to my husband, "It's like torture." It's like,
Hmm.
it felt like this incredibly masochistic thing to actually sell the product, um, and to I suppose let people actually it felt more real, I suppose, on that level. On
Yeah.
Instagram, it didn't. So
Is it
yes.
okay if I ask a question? Because I'm so curious about this. Because I think the kind of visibility stories that I'm most familiar with are, what if the work's not good enough? Or what if nobody wants it? Or, blah, blah, blah. What, like, if there was a script going through your head, or maybe there wasn't, but if there was, what was it? Or what were the sensations?
Do you think that part of it was, um, everyone's raving on Instagram? Um, I had, like, lots of others, like, chefs asking me to send ceramics around the world. I sent ceramics to
Yeah.
Hetty McKinnon um, and, you know, been in books and had, my ceramics featured in magazines, and even then, I think the thing was that when the ceramics leave the house, leave the studio, are put in the box, that kind of
Yeah.
feels more real, and that's more part of me than when it's interfaced with, when
Mm.
there is the space that the internet provides. It's real when you pack it into a box. Um,
Was it a feeling of, like, vulnerability of being exposed?
yeah, very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah. And I think that is so relatable for so many people. It might take on different flavors, but that fear of exposure and vulnerability is yeah, I
yeah.
really get that.
It's an awful, awful feeling. Um, but the thing was that I was able to, if it's only once a quarter, it's an awful feeling for about a week, and then you move past it. And then pottery is an incredibly, it's mostly the perfect thing to be doing, whether you're an introvert or just someone who doesn't like being, being seen, or like your nervous system, reacts to putting yourself out there. Because
Yeah.
pottery, you're in your studio, and you might have a podcast on, and there's no one coming. It's just you and your clay, and yeah. So I think pottery worked for me, except for that what felt like a torturous experience once a quarter of showing up.
Yeah.
Except for that, pottery worked very well for me. Um, and I managed, and the thing was, I managed to work out a way that I could show up on Instagram, which was in alignment with my nervous system needs, with my creative needs, with my business needs, and I love that. And actually, I would say that Instagram became also kind of like another arm of my creativity.
Yeah.
Um, and so, actually creating for it, I loved, because I loved the output. I loved the images that I was creating. Um, but in terms of how I got to where I am now, I started, yeah, to go back. So I was aware that I was very comfortable using Instagram. I was aware that I was having, all these amazing opportunities coming to me, that I had great numbers, and my business was being sustained by it. In
Yeah.
my business was being built by it, like it was driving all the good things that I wanted. Um, and I started seeing that lots of people in my space, because the nice thing about Instagram is that you can really curate your network in Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I was very much curating my network, but I was aware of the fact that there was kind of like, there were some people who, in a similar way to me, were very happy, very comfortable making beautiful, for want of a better word, like art for their Instagram. And then there were people who I could see wanted to, but didn't understand how to use Instagram. And I think of Instagram, it's like a game,
Mm.
and it's positing it like that, positioning it like that, is a way that, number one, you can understand that there are rules, and when you know those rules, you can work out how to play the game best for you. Um, but the other thing I love about thinking about Instagram as a game is that then that it helps with your mental health. You can actually,
Mm.
it's just a game. You can
Yeah.
walk away from it if you have to. You can engage with it if you want to. It's got rules, and if they are rules you outright reject, you can leave it. Um, so, but it became very obvious to me that there were lots of people in my kind of network, in my space, creative women, um, doing beautiful things, quite often regional Australian women,
Yeah.
um, who didn't know the rules of the game
Hmm.
and wanted to use it, knew how powerful it could be, could see, like I was telling them these amazing things that were happening to me off the back of it. And so they were looking for help strategizing, learning the rules of the game. And
Yeah.
I started a newsletter and started, doing kind of like some informal coaching and then some slightly more formal coaching, helping people develop strategies for how they were going to deal with this space. And I loved it. I love marketing and I love marketing psychology and so much of what you're doing in Instagram is about psychology, whether or not you know it or you realize what's going on. Um,
Mhm.
and and I really kind of started nerding out on it, like totally nerding out on it. Um, but my visibility issues kind of stepped in and stopped me
Ah.
taking it further.
Ah.
Because there is a difference between showing up for a week every quarter and being
Yeah.
visible and being, to use that word again, tortured. It really felt like torture to
Yeah.
do that once a quarter. There's a difference between doing that and doing it like all the time if you're going to show up as a consultant and a coach in a space and putting yourself out
Mm.
there all the time, because it becomes so much more about you and not your product.
Yeah. Of course.
And
Of
so
course.
and so I had this massive, massive block, which was, even though I had people asking for help, and even though I could see that I had scalability with helping, that I could scale that as a business offering, my nervous system was not on board.
Mm.
And I know there's nothing I can do about it, but one of the biggest regret, and I'm not down with regrets, like I don't really do regrets, but I
Yeah.
seriously regret not jumping on board with, yeah, that path earlier in my life.
Mm.
And as I think can happen quite frequently to people, sometimes when it's like a path is shown to you and you keep rejecting the path, um, it's almost like the universe steps in and slaps you around a bit until you kind
Yeah.
of accept the path. And I got
Yeah.
chronically ill a few years ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
and um and was really out of action for like 2 years, like really out of action, and didn't know that I was going to get better. um I remember lying in bed with my husband and crying and going, I
Yeah.
can I don't know that I'm ever going to be me again. Like,
Oof.
um it was really, really full on for a few
I
years.
have been in that crying to my husband with chronic pain, and I just so empathize with that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. um and Anyway, that kind of put an end to my pottery. I'm
Yeah.
actually, yeah, so I did do, like, as I came out of that last year,
Mm.
I think at the beginning of last year, I did a small amount of pottery, and it was more like as a goodbye kind of. I had people who had been very patiently waiting for a few years, sort of, for
Yeah.
me to make more work. And I made a small amount of work at the beginning of last year, I think it was. And then I was like, that's it. I'm giving away my pottery business.
Mm.
Because one of the things that happened is I developed a condition called POTS, or postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome.
Yeah.
And I'm medicated for it now, so I'm actually a lot better, but I still can't lift heavy things without it really impacting on me.
Yeah.
And kind of pottery is all about lifting heavy things. 25-kilo bags of clay, 10-kilo pottery shelves. I reckon my kiln lid would have been 100 kilos. My other kiln, the front door on that kiln, which I had to lift, would have easily been another 100 kilos.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything about my pottery practice, my body rejected. And the logical solution was to, like, for in terms of like where I ended up going, was to move down this path further and embrace helping quiet creatives show up on Instagram authentically. Um, but I still had this problem with the nervous system.
Yeah, with the visibility of that
Hmm.
and showing up consistently instead of just 4 times a year knuckling through.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I knew it. I knew that I knew it without naming it. I'd never heard it referred to as a nervous system. Like, this, like, I'd never had it contextualized like that. Um, so I just started looking for different ways to support my system, um, and ended up using a whole series of different ones, including somatic therapy. I used EMDR, or
Yeah.
I suppose I had EMDR sessions, um, particularly to help with some of the trauma, associated with almost dying. I also
Yeah.
We live in the country, and I used to live at a very old, beautiful, beautiful cottage on a hill. No one around us, could see the ocean, like, from, even though we didn't live anywhere near the ocean. Like, you could see the
Yeah.
ocean like 100 k's away because we were high up on
Hmm.
this hill. And I love, love, love living there. But we were surrounded by snakes.
Oh. Oh my gosh.
And I had all these hideous experiences with brown snakes. Snakes in the house, snakes on the front
Oh,
veranda, snakes, on the back veranda, cats bringing in baby snakes,
oh
like,
gosh.
just really, really bad stuff. So I had to kind of work through that trauma as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it.
But yeah, so
The fear.
lots and lots of fear, lots and
Yeah.
lots. And it's, yeah. But I did EMDR. I have done somatic therapy. I use affirmations, um, and I've done journaling, and I've worked on all of these things because, and I think that the reason is because I actually love helping women show up as, authentically, as in alignment as they can in this space. But really interestingly, heaps and heaps of them have the same problem with showing up. They don't want
Oh,
us.
yeah. A quick pause here because I want to invite you into something that I think could shift the way you feel about showing up. If you're a sensitive creative or entrepreneur, and the idea of being really seen and heard brings up fear, resistance, or that, oh no, not me feeling, you are in good company. My free visibility workshop, Let Yourself Be Seen, is all about making visibility feel safe to your nervous system and true to you. We'll explore how to work with fear as a doorway into more authentic self expression so you can share the work that matters most to you without pushing, pretending, or burning out. You can save your spot or catch the replay at annaholtzman.com/be seen. Okay, let's get back to the conversation. I mean, this is so common, right? And even like the somaticization, like the physical symptoms that can come with it, so common. I mean, it's just wild to me actually how many people I connect to through Instagram, like we find each other because of this confluence of sensitivity and creativity.
Yeah,
It's really
because it is a
interesting.
great space for creatives. And if you are ambitious, it can have the power to absolutely supercharge your business. Um, so, we see that. We see the power there. We see the strength. We see the value in showing up. But yeah, most of us don't want to show up the way that we're told to by the big guns who are out there spruiking Instagram, like the big famous people talking about it.
Yeah. And we're like, bring us up to present day with s showing up consistently. What's that like for you nowadays? Is it still excruciating in ways, or has it shifted? Like, what's it like?
No, it's not excruciating. It's I think that when I see women I've worked with, people I've worked with, I say women, it's like 99.9% women.
Yeah.
Um, but when I see them tick the boxes, do all the things, because I've like used the tools that I've given them and use them in ways that meet them in their season of life, um, and in ways that are authentic to who they are. Because one of the things when I see on Instagram, when I see someone like a creative, um, who I would probably classify as a quiet creative, when I see them like doing a trendy thing, or they've got the voiceover, which everyone's doing the voiceover. I'm like, it hurts my feelings.
Because
Um,
you see them kind of trying to put themselves into a box that's not
yeah,
actually comfortable for them, is that
yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
it's because they've been told to do it by someone who has no connection with them. Like
yeah.
so many courses and stuff are not, they're just like they're out of the box and they're not.
Right, what like a one size fits all
Yeah,
idea. Yeah,
yeah. But when I see them take the tools and implement in a way which is, in alignment, and then hit serious goals, like that's nothing lights me up like it. And like I had a student, so I have like I do one-on-one um consults.
yeah.
But I also have a course called the Poppy. Um, and the Poppy is about, it's about helping people show up on Instagram, um, quite creatives, and I release that 3 times a year. Anyway, I released it in May. I've just released it again, and it's closed currently at the moment. But I released it uh, in May, and I had a student just dive straight in.
Yeah.
So completed the course before my launch week was even over.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, wow. Anyway, they had
Yeah.
3,000 followers and were stuck at 3,000 followers when they did the course. And within 12 weeks, they had more than 25,000 followers.
Wow. Oh my
Right.
gosh, my jaw dropped.
Right. Obviously, like I can't guarantee results like that for anyone, but
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I do think, like I said to my husband, they don't have children.
So they could devote all of
Bandwidth,
their time
like,
to it.
and it's
Yeah,
true, like, the more bandwidth you have, the more capacity you will have,
yeah.
to meet Instagram where it wants to be met. But like but it wasn't just that they grew, it was that they grew and were absolutely inundated with orders, and
Wow.
were to the point where they were doing stories on Instagram where they were like, "It's coming. My next update's coming. I can't take any more, blah blah blahs. Join my mailing list. Join my mailing list. Join my mailing list. Like it's coming, but I'm a potter. It's just me, one person. Blah blah." So that stuff lights me up. But it lit me up before when I hadn't done the somatic therapy and I hadn't done the EMDR.
Yeah.
Um, what I have now is I don't I just don't feel it's like it's kind of like magic. Like I just don't feel terrified about showing up.
No longer overwhelmed by that surge of energy? Would that be a way to describe it?
Yeah, but like it was like physical pain
Yeah.
beforehand. It was like and
Yeah.
but also I think I probably had a lot of that kind of the freeze response. So
Yeah.
it took me quite a while to get my course, like even though I'd had a course in me for years, it
Yes.
took me a long time to actually get it up.
I'm laughing because the first course that I ever created, it was a chronic pain recovery course. And, um, I put a date on the calendar I mean, it took me forever to, like, write the script and just prepare. And then I put a date on the calendar to record myself, speaking, and I have a sofa in my office, and I laid on that totally immobilized for that entire day that I had scheduled, and also for a good portion of the entire next day. This full-on freeze response.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I absolutely. The only way I could get my course done
Yeah.
was to launch it, not finished.
Yes.
And then I had that accountability
Yeah.
and I had to do it. People had given me money. It had to get finished, which was awful.
Right, not an effective approach, maybe not necessarily the gentlest.
Not gentle at all. Truly, truly awful. But did get it done. And I hadn't. Not that I say I finished my working through my nervous system response to things, but I was certainly not at the point I am now with it.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I think about it, I hadn't done any somatic therapy at that point.
Yeah.
I had only done the
Yeah.
EMDR and a few other um, things. So, um, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, the course had been there for years in my,
Yes.
and I'd written stuff, and yeah, it was, yeah.
Ilona, I have to I don't have to, but I'm kind of bursting to, like, butt in and ask a question that I think is, like, on the mind of every quiet creative who's listening to this conversation. When you talked about those incredible results that one student had, and of course, this is not necessarily what you guarantee for every student, but these were results that someone got from using your tips and your knowledge and all this stuff, and without giving away the entire thing, that is in your course. Are there some things you can share? Like, how did this happen? Are there some tips you could share without giving away the whole course?
Oh, how could I well, okay, so it is a course for a reason. There's
Exactly.
and Instagram is really complex. Like there are so many different components, there's different feeds. Every feed has a different way to approach it and a different purpose. And they keep introducing new stuff too. I will say that one of the things that I do, like on my Quiet Creatives Instagram account and in my newsletter and in my course, is I just ignore stuff that's not
Yes.
relevant to Quiet Creatives. So yeah, if I
That in
think that
itself is a tip, I think, because folks who are trying to use Instagram and are learning it, I think it's very easy to get caught up in that shiny object syndrome or the, like, taking all the different advice and then just getting fully burned out.
Yeah. So there's stuff that, yeah, that I'm just like, yeah, this is for us. But I think that, like, if I was to say, so I think cohesiveness of your
Yeah,
grids and of your, of your brand message, to use technical, bit more boring terms, but cohesiveness visually is critical. Consistency is critical. Um, and although I will say, so because consistency in different ways, one of them is showing up. But I will say that
yeah,
the approach that I have, that I don't think I've ever seen anyone else really talk about, but I talk about this idea that you can show up, like, if you want to do, like, you've got a launch or, an exhibition coming up or a shop opening or you've got something happening and you want to get excitement building, Instagram's a brilliant way to do it. Certainly, yeah. But what you want to do is you want to very consistently show up in the lead up to that thing for weeks.
yeah,
But what I'm kind of pretty hot and strong on is the idea that you don't have to do that indefinitely and for the rest of your life. You can
yeah,
take breaks. And as long as you're messaging that you're taking breaks, and as long as you're aware that it's kind of like putting your foot on the accelerator and taking your foot off, you show up with all the pieces in place. Like, you want to have all the pieces in place to start with. Otherwise, there's no point showing up.
yeah,
Show up with all the pieces in place consistently over, like a 6 week, I call them sprints. You run into the thing that you want to get everyone excited about, and then you can take a break afterwards. You just,
yeah,
you can put like an out of office equivalent on your grid, which says, depending on what level of break you're taking. So, like, I'm a huge advocate for taking 2 weeks off over Christmas. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to answer my DMs. I'm not going to, again, it depends on who your market is. Christmas might be the best time for you to be on Instagram, and you take off, 4 weeks during winter or something. Sorry, it's winter, it's not winter for Christmas for us. You
yeah.
might take
Oh,
off
yeah.
4 weeks for summer.
Right. Your seasons are different from mine. Yeah,
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 yeah. So you might take off 4 weeks over summer. As long as you put, like, an out of office, I'm not going to be here. Please don't expect anything of me in this space,
yeah,
then that's fine. You'll lose traction while you're not around, and then you just build your traction back up and get going again. So, yeah, that's about meeting your nervous system where it's at. That's about meeting
yes.
your needs, your life's needs, the season of your life. But there's so many pieces of the puzzle. There's heaps and heaps of pieces on the puzzle.
But that's so rich. What you just shared is so rich, and I'll share something that came to my mind while I was listening to you because, we have overlaps in the stuff we talk about, but my kind of, like, main area where I play is nervous system work, and when you were talking about consistency, it's like developing consistency. Okay, this might sound very random at first, but the first thing that popped into my head was that about 10 years ago, and this was before I learned all this stuff about the nervous system because it was really before my intense chronic pain experience. I attended a workshop, a qigong workshop with this incredible qigong master, and he told us that he had experienced all this chronic illness in his life, and he finally healed himself through, in his case, qigong. And we were all like, "Oh, qigong, that must be like magic." And then he said something really incredible that stuck with me to this day and started to make a lot more sense to me once I dove into mind body work. He said, it doesn't really matter what practice you do. It doesn't have to be qigong, and it doesn't have to be the way I'm teaching it to you. What matters is that you do something consistently. And I was like, huh. It just stuck with me. And then later on, when I recovered from migraine through doing, all this mind body work, I was like, I totally understand what he meant because through consistency, you're developing a trust relationship with your nervous system. And so your body can finally feel safe with you. And, when you said the thing about consistency, I was like, right, because you're developing a trust relationship with your audience so they can trust you, right?
It's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's really beautiful that you mentioned that. There's a one of my favorite quotes from a book by Deleuze and Guattari. 1000, it's called 1000 Plateaus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia. It's,
Mm.
like I read parts of it. It's very, very dense. Parts of
Yeah,
it,
sounds
when
good.
at uni doing visual arts. Um, but there's one bit that always stuck out to me. It was this really, really beautiful quote about sonic repetition
Mm,
and the child rocking, singing a song over and over again,
mm.
building a sonic wall around them of safety.
Wow, I got shivers. Yeah,
And I think similarly, and again, we're not talking Instagram here. I think we're talking safety, and that sense of safety. I think that the repetition in our days, the repetition in our life, um, are very similar, um, and it's very much a cause for honoring repetition. Um, and I think about it in terms particularly of like family gatherings.
yeah,
So, you know, so much sense of safety can be built through having routines, and so much sense of safety can be built through having seasonality. And, this is what we eat at this time of year. And I think there's
yeah,
a really rich um, body of information, particularly, I suppose, in like, permaculture communities, even. And I'm kind of sliding off to one side here, but yeah, I think that there's something very much very beautiful and very powerful about repetition, about seasonality, and absolutely not only building trust in ourselves, but
yes,
yes, the flip side of that, if we bring it back to Instagram, is having our audience begin to trust us, and that's fundamental to what I teach as well. And do you know what though? Like
yeah,
this is the thing. When I first started making pots and selling through Instagram, or showing up on Instagram, I
yeah,
remember saying to my husband, I was like, these people don't know me. Why do they trust me? I don't get it. And it's because I'm showing up the same way day in, day
yes,
out. And they were happy to get, because I get like an order for $700 for plates to go to America. And I'm like, they've got no recourse. Like, if something went wrong, I mean, like, I'm a trustworthy person, but if something went wrong, how do they know that I'm going to do right by them? And,
yeah.
that's marketing psychology.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not something we don't already innately understand. We just
Mm,
need, someone like you to help us apply what we already innately know to marketing, right? Because
mm,
what you're describing, this is why my cats feel safe with me and they don't run and hide every time I walk into the house like they do when a new person walks in.
mhm.
And if that new person has, inconsistent, unpredictable movements and sounds, they will continue to hide from that person. But if the person walks in and they have predictable,
Be safe
stable,
around them.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
then they wanna come up and make friends. Um, we're getting close to the time when we'll have to wind this conversation down, but there's a question that's coming off of what you've been sharing here, which I think it's so rich and interesting to me. We're talking about how consistency builds safety. Something that comes up with quite a number of my sensitive, creative, coaching clients that I work with is that they long for and desire consistency and even routine, like, in their creative practice, because they know that it would support them to, it would make it more sustainable, right? But they have this resistance to the consistency and routine, and it often comes up in the form of, like, you know, I'm gonna feel trapped by the consistency. I'm curious if this is something that you, you know, deal with in terms of supporting people with Instagram and how you approach this.
Yes, it's familiar. And I think it's a creative's, load to bear. It's so one of the things that I come up with frequently is frequently come up with creatives who are very ambitious, have incredible skills, have lots to offer the world, but their nervous system stops them. And
Yeah,
that's why I love that, we're having this conversation, because that's not my area of expertise. But the other thing that I come at quite frequently is also creatives don't want to be boxed in,
yeah,
and they want to be able to do all the things.
yes,
And I completely understand that. I too, I honestly, one life is not enough. There are so many things to see and do and make and share and create. Um, and I don't know that this is going to help you, but when it comes to Instagram, what I say to those people who are like, but I want to do pottery and I want to do this and I want to do this type of drawing, but then I want to do this type of painting. I say, unfortunately, the way marketing works and the way Instagram works and the way audiences um, engage, unfortunately, if you want to build a thriving business, you are going to have to choose a lane to start with.
yeah.
And you're going to need to be consistent in that lane. Now, that's not to say you can't do all the other things, but I just don't want you showing up on Instagram doing all the other things.
Yeah. I love that. So simple.
I'm not telling you not to do them. I'm just telling you not to do them publicly. and and the truth of the matter is that if you can build in that one lane, and they talk about this in other businesses as well,
Yeah,
you can niche out. So effectively building in your one lane as a creative is you niching down. And then so like there's a brilliant example. I worked with a potter who um who's that her and her husband have a floristry business, or so they grow flowers. But
yeah,
she her background is in pottery, and she said she, was looking for help creating strategy for Instagram, and she was making these particular type of pots. And then she moved on to decorating the pots. And so, she's
yeah.
showing up consistently. She's building a relationship with her following. She's, got her mailing list happening. Everything's coming together. But she's like, okay, I'm making vases. pottery vases, and they were being just single color. And then she evolved, so they were single color, but with like pattern drawn on them,
Yeah.
painted on them. And then she has branched out further into like more in like still doing pottery, but more decoration, more decorative, and now has lent her designs to surface design. So
Mm,
she's slowly niching out and taking her audience with her as she does
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so the trust isn't being undermined
Right.
by jumping all over the place.
Right. It's variety, but it's not erratic.
It's not erratic and it's all in alignment and it all makes sense to an audience because, oh, well, she was
Yeah.
at that point before. Now she's there. Now she's there. They're on the journey with her, supporting her, building her up as she goes on this beautiful journey. She's like
Yeah.
really doing very, very well. Um, We don't know though what she's doing in the background. We don't know what colors she's playing with, and we don't need to know because she's taking us on a very specific journey, which is maintaining the trust relationship.
And that's such a beautiful example. What a great story. And, something that I find myself saying often to clients is your nervous system does enjoy variety. It just does not enjoy abruptness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the abruptness doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, it doesn't feel safe. Yeah. Um, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and I am confident we'll be having more conversations. Um, but we are coming to the time in this conversation where I will ask you my 3 final questions that I ask every guest. The first of which is, if there is a soapbox message that you feel is infused into the work you're doing now and everything that you share and say when you're working with clients, what would that message be?
I think that quiet creatives can show up on Instagram in a way that feels safe, that feels in alignment, that feels authentic, and can tap into the power of that platform to support their business in ways that, might actually be quite unimaginable. I mean, like I've been on television, which I am sure would never have happened without Instagram. So yeah, that's my soapbox message. You can use the platform and be in alignment. And I think, you can do it in a way that doesn't feel um traumatic to your nervous system. You really, really can.
Yeah. And the next question is for the listener who identifies as a quiet creative and is feeling like fresh inspiration and ambition bubbling up in them, and they're like, they can't wait to learn more about what you teach. They're also feeling that fear come in and the overwhelm and the like, oh, there's so many things to learn and where do I even start? What words of encouragement do you have to that listener?
Um, that that you can do it, and that there are it's kind of about dipping your toes in to start with. And I've actually
Yeah.
put together like it's called dipping your toes in. It's like an introduction to starting your journey on Instagram in a way that feels safe and in alignment and that won't overwhelm you and overwhelm your nervous system. So I put together it's just a little PDF to help you, um, yeah, feel comfortable. You can you might be interested in following my Instagram account, which is Quiet Creatives Academy. I share stuff there. I share tips there. I have a channel there as well where kind of more in the channel. It's more like immediate stuff. So when a new functionality drops, I'll be like, "This functionality's just dropped. Do you know what? I think you can just ignore that. Don't worry about it." So yeah, you can start in a very quiet, very non-confrontational way. And if that sounds like something that you wanna do, yeah, come and find me on Instagram. The other thing is, so I have that freebie, and then I also have, like, following along the lines of safety, I actually have a safety and security checklist, for
Wow.
Instagram.
Huh.
Um, because, because it's the big wide world out there, and sometimes there are nefarious people on the internet. And I have to say that it hasn't happened very often to me, but the few times when my nervous system has been, like, fully activated on
Yeah.
Instagram have been when people have been trying to scam me.
Yeah.
Um, and when you get one of those messages in your DMs, they have they have mastered the art of terrifying you.
Oof. Yeah.
And like I say, in my corner of the internet, it does not happen very often. I reckon it's probably happened 3 times in 10 years. Um, but if you have a copy of my safety and security checklist, and if you do it and if you program it, it's just like programmed to run through it regularly, um, then it's just one of those things. You have that armor, you know what to, yeah, how to keep yourself safe in the space. And I even say on there, if you ever find yourself, feeling uncomfortable, you're always welcome to DM me. Um, so yeah, so I have them sitting on a special page on my site, which I've created for today.
Thank
Uh,
you so much.
it's okay. And so that's just, if you go to thequietcreativesacademy.com/Anna H.
Perfect. Beautiful. And I'll put those in the show notes too so folks can find you on Instagram and find these resources easily. And then if folks do want to dip a toe even deeper, what are the ways that they can work with you?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I launch my course, The Poppy, 3 times a year. And we're in off season at the moment. But if you're on the mailing list, you find out about that when it's coming into pre-launch. And you can actually also even join a wait list now, um, which I don't know, maybe I should pop that onto my page for you guys as well. Um, and So I have that, and then I also do one-on-one, consulting for if people can't wait for the next doors to be open to the poppy, or if they have something really particular, like if they're I'm finding more and more people, particularly as creatives, start creating their own courses to share with people. I'm
Yeah.
helping them with their Instagram strategy for how to market those things as they go into them. Um, so the one-on-one stuff, is available, within my capacity, and then, later on this year, I'm launching a membership. So that's a to TBA right
Exciting.
now.
Very,
Yeah,
very exciting and cool.
yeah.
Ilona, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for connecting with me through the magic of Instagram that we somehow found each other. I'm so glad to have a new friend and collaborator, and I look
It's
forward to
been
chatting
lovely,
with you
and
again soon.
I'm super excited, because like I think I've said to you about 100 times now, I the one thing, like, I just think that what you do dovetails so beautifully with what I do, and I have when I'm working with quiet creatives who have this nervous system stopping them from doing amazing things, you know,
Yeah.
I work on helping people be visible, but if the nervous system isn't going to allow them to be visible comfortably, then we're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back the whole time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I am looking forward to having more conversations with you.
Me too. Me too. I see a lot of collaborations in our future.
Beautiful.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.